This is Judith Lay welcoming you to Manx Radio and to the podcast of this week's edition of At Your Service. Manx Radio! We fear it more than cancer and find it so difficult to talk about. But what is it? It's dementia. And I'm truly sorry if your personal experience makes today's topic a painful one for you. But I do hope that you'll keep listening, because what I'm offering this morning is a chance to listen to three women, very different, but each of them so inspiring and positive. Gina, who's in her early 50s and lives with dementia. Jackie, who's a primary school teacher in Liverpool, and Professor June Andrews, an international dementia specialist advisor who believes that our church communities are perfectly equipped to be places of safety, support and understanding for those who live with dementia and those who love and care for them. And we'll meet all of them after this music from the International Staff Songsters of the Salvation Army. Jesus, stand among us at the meeting of our lives. Be our sweet agreement at the meeting of our eyes. Written by Graham Kendrick and sung by the International Staff Songsters of the Salvation Army. Jesus, stand among us. Professor June Andrews is an international dementia specialist advisor and a deeply committed Christian. She believes our church communities should be providing support and understanding to those who live with dementia and those who love and care for them, providing places where a life-changing positive attitude is cultivated and shared. June says, I don't just want a dementia-friendly church. What I really want is a dementia-friendly country, but we have to start where we are. June is an acknowledged expert in the field of dementia, with a passionate desire to share all that she's learned through her intensive study of the condition. So she's the perfect person to inspire and inform. Let's meet her now, firstly explaining how she came to specialise in dementia.
Well, my background is that I'm a nurse, and for 10 years I was the director of the Dementia Centre at the University of Stirling. We took research that people had done and we turned it into something of practical use, because researchers can find out brilliant things, but sometimes it sits on shelves and gathers dust and doesn't make any change in the world. So that was our job. So since I left the university, what I've been doing is working on smaller projects where I've been working with individual groups to help. And I was really lucky. I was offered some funding by the Dementia Services Development Trust, that's a little charity in Scotland, to work on what we called reframing dementia. The idea that people have about dementia sometimes comes from the media or from personal experience. And we thought that some of the ideas that were out there weren't helpful. They were making people feel a bit lost or as if they couldn't do anything. So we've been working on reframing that idea and helping people think of practical things that they can do to make a difference. Dementia awareness has never been as high as it is now because there's a lot of information about it in the media and lots of stories, for example, of celebrities and their own journey. And that's interesting and important, but it doesn't tell you what to do if you're affected yourself. But in fact, it's very different for everybody. And so that's why having the widest range of practical things which are based on research evidence available to people is really useful. That's the important thing. We want to be useful.
So how can churches be useful? What are you saying to churches?
Well, I would like to change all of society. But a church is a brilliant place to start, because what have you got there? You've got a group of people who know their own community. So they've known people for a long time, and they can do one of the first most important things, which is to spot a change. Because dementia is not about being at a certain level of memory or a certain level of knowledge. It's about being worse off than you were before. So a great mathematician might still be better at maths than her doctor is. But if she's going downhill from what she used to be able to do, it might be that she needs to have some help. So knowing people over a long period of time is important. The other thing that's wonderful about a church is you see people regularly. So you see people every week. So if for a couple of weeks they don't come along, then you know straight away. And because they're part of your church, you have the kind of authority really to go and call on them. They don't say, "Who are you, stranger?" They know that you will come to look for them if for some reason they disappear. It doesn't matter which faith group you belong to. Religious teachings tell us that we should be looking after other people, and particularly old people, our parents. So I think the wonderful thing about churches is they're all lined up and facing the right direction to help people with dementia. All they need is some practical advice about what makes a difference.
What could you do if somebody perhaps senses changes in themselves but doesn't want to accept that, doesn't want to talk about it, wants to pretend that everything's all right, that maybe the problem was with the other person? Is there a technique for dealing with that?
Yes, you've described a really interesting dilemma, because on the one hand, with the increased awareness of dementia, I meet hundreds of really well older people who've got the normal slowing that you get in your reaction times, who say, "Oh, I'm worried, I think I might have dementia." So we see lots of worried well people. But we still see lots of people who, because of the stigma of dementia, because of the fear of dementia, and the research shows we fear it more than cancer, because of the fear, people go into denial and they don't want to talk about it. So one of the things that really helps is if you give the people round about the person with dementia some knowledge and ideas about how to approach the question. In my family, for example, we started talking very early, and I've said to my dad for years, "Dad, if I ever think for a minute you're getting any kind of dementia, you can be sure I'm going to talk to you about it." And that means that when the day comes, if I do have to talk to him about it, it's not going to be a surprise. And he knows that I would be talking about it at the earliest possible stage. And one good reason when I was persuading him that this was a good idea is that the medication for dementia, there's not a lot of medication and it's not brilliant, but insofar as there is any medication, it works best at the early stages. And so you wouldn't want to miss that opportunity of staying well just because you're denying that you've got the problem. So rule number one would be talk about it as early as possible before it's necessary. Problem for many of us is, of course, we never took that opportunity. So you've got a situation where somebody has got something badly wrong with them and it's very hard for you to open the conversation. Sometimes in the guidance that we've made for churches, we've suggested some things. Raise awareness, have perhaps someone come along to the church and talk about dementia awareness, and plant a question in the audience, or say from the audience. if I knew someone who I was worried about dementia, how should I get them to ask about it and have that conversation, and even say to people, how would you like us to deal with it if we thought it was you? How would I like to deal with it if I thought it was me? So if you start having a conversation about it, then you can start easing the difficulty that there is. Also, the more dementia awareness you've got, I think the less afraid people are of it.
The thing that has most shocked me from what you've said is the fact that we fear this more than cancer. Fear is such a disabling emotion, isn't it? That surely we've got to somehow get around that. Whatever people are fearful of, we've got to be a reassuring community, haven't we?
That's right. And when we did the research that showed that people are more afraid of dementia than they are of cancer, we still didn't get to the bottom of why this is. Now, very many people now regard cancer as a chronic illness. Lots of people have cancer and get better. Other people have cancer and manage to control it and extend their lives for a long time. Sadly, some people have cancer and do die, and die quite quickly, and it's uncomfortable. But there's still a message of hope. There's been research. Some cancers have really been knocked on the head. With dementia, the message always is that there still is no cure. And anything for which there is no cure is a bit frightening. The problem is that when you say there's no cure for it, people equate that with there's nothing you can do. But actually, there's a huge amount that you can do to alleviate the symptoms. The other thing is, we really don't know whether the fear is the quite natural fear of dependence. And the picture you sometimes see of somebody, in a care home, totally dependent on other people for quite basic things like going to the toilet. That is a very horrible image for some people. But quite a lot of people with dementia have years and years of not being like that, having a great time, filling out their bucket list, doing all the fun things they always planned to do. So it's not necessarily as bad as some people think. But there's one final thing that really does make people afraid of it, and that's money. Now, where I live, I come from Scotland, and where I live, if I was diagnosed with cancer tomorrow, everything would be paid for by the state, even if I had hospice care, if I had to be looked after at home. The only thing I'd have to pay for is parking at the hospital. If I was diagnosed with dementia tomorrow, I'd have to sell my house to pay for my care. The choices that I would have over what was going to happen to me would be really limited. So sometimes for people it's the fear of loss of control that's as disabling as the fear of the disease itself.
Do you think what we fear also is losing our personality and therefore not having a place within our community or our family? Do you think that's something else, not being loved, that we fear as well?
Losing our personality and not being loved, these are big, big issues. And I often hear people talk about the person with dementia losing their personality. And it's true that aspects of your personality change. Some aspects are exaggerated and some of them disappear. An example I give sometimes is a woman who no longer recognises her daughter. And so it's as if your mum lost her personality when she can't address you anymore, when you can't speak to her as a daughter anymore. And that's why I sometimes teach people the technique where if I was to say to my mum, I'm your daughter, and she says, no, you're not, my daughter's 15 and she's at school and I say, well, tell me about her then, what's she like? And see her face light up when she says, oh, she's in the school orchestra and she came top in French and all those things. So you can still see the personality there as long as you enter the reality of the person with dementia. So the personality hasn't really changed, it's just you're kind of picking them up by the wrong handle when you're trying to force them into your current reality now. So I don't care if she doesn't know I'm a middle-aged lady, as long as I remember that I was adored when I was a child at school. And there are other things that you can do to learn how to really find that personality in there. There are quite a lot of interesting theological issues around dementia and what happens with dementia. And recently, in conversation with clerics, we've been talking about what you should do if a person who's always had a faith all their life suddenly says, when you know they have dementia, that they don't believe in God anymore and that God has abandoned them. Is this their last word? One of the clerics said, well, I think God's quite reasonable and probably would understand why it was the person was saying these kind of things. But it always brings me back to a quote about a nun who, when she was diagnosed with dementia, said that she was terrified that she would forget Jesus. And she was told, Jesus will never forget you. And I think that must be the most comforting thing for someone who's descending into dementia, to know, to have an absolute faith and an understanding that you will not be forgotten. And so you can relax into this rather strange experience that your body and your brain is putting you through, and know that whatever happens, you'll be cared for and still be loved.
We as a community have to reflect that love as well, and that acceptance.
Absolutely. And knowing practical ways of showing love, making sure someone is hydrated, has plenty to drink, offering a meal, just being there, and just understanding any quirky behaviour that starts. That really is love in practice.
Professor June Andrews with a very small part of the wealth of practical help and advice that she shared during a day-long presentation. And Professor June Andrews has published a book. Most people who are diagnosed or who are dealing with the diagnosis of a loved one feel as though they are completely alone. Dementia, the One-Stop Guide by June Andrews aims to fill this gap with clear and sensible information about recognising symptoms, getting help, managing financially, staying at home, treatments, being a carer, and staying positive. This guide will help those with dementia and their families to make sure that they can stay well, independent and happy for as long as possible. Dementia, the One-Stop Guide by June Andrews is available from all bookshops. If they don't have it in stock, they'll be able to order it easily for you. It's also available online to download as an ebook, and I cannot recommend it too highly. And to complete this feature, we'll hear from Gina, a lady who was diagnosed with dementia in her 50s, but is determined to live happily with it and encourages anybody else in a similar situation to hers to do the same. And we'll also hear from a school teacher who's made her whole school dementia-friendly. Gina Shaw lives in Liverpool and was diagnosed with dementia some years ago when she was only in her early 50s. But she refuses to allow herself to be anything other than cheerful, relaxed and positive about her condition.
Well, basically, this is our opportunity. We've got dementia, so make the most of it, because there's no point in sitting at home feeling miserable, and especially not watching the television. And enjoy the time that you can spend with your grandchildren. You can redo your childhood, and there's always somebody that'll help if you do get desperately, lost. I've had perfect strangers taking me home before now.
We do tend to think we must be very serious, and you're saying, no, look at the other side of the coin.
Yes, take it as an opportunity, because, life is short enough without being miserable and unhappy about things and worrying about things, worrying how you behave. Just have fun while you can.
Gina Shaw, not just living well with dementia, but, as I discovered, inspiring local school children and their teacher to make a film. Here's Gina to take up the story.
It is a film that we made with Holy Family School, and the children there are just fantastic. I love all of them, every one of them. And they have taken the idea of Dementia Friends to the nth degree. They've just taken it and made it even better.
Well, let's go to teacher Jackie Kline now. How did you get involved in this, Jackie?
By meeting Gina. I know Gina's husband. He used to teach at our school. He told us about Gina and how she's living with dementia, and her story inspired us to do something and try and help our community. First of all, we got the little book that tells us how to be a dementia friend, and we made it into children-friendly speak and made up PowerPoints, taught our children. Gina came and supported us, as well as some other people from Alzheimer's Society. And slowly we started to train our parents and our children, and the more confidence we got with that, we've made links with our care home that we visit every week, and we just bring the whole community involved with it now. And our school is one big family in the community, and we like to treat everybody in our community as part of our family. Every child in the whole school gets taught about dementia. However, I only take the junior school children to the care home. Having links with Gina has been incredibly helpful with this, because Gina is a living example of how to live well with dementia, and I think she's removed that stigma attached to the condition so that the children say that there's nothing frightening about it at all, and children are so accepting anyway. They love Gina loves them.
Do you find that when you take them to the care home, they have a natural way of communicating? They don't have to be told what to say or how to behave?
It's the most beautiful thing to watch. It's not dependent on how they are academically or anything like that. They treat them like their own family. They've made friends with them now. They just have a great time. In fact, when they find out it's their turn to go that week, you hear the biggest cheer.
This is what education is all about, Jackie, isn't it? It's producing young people who are complete and rounded.
It's what education should be about. Education is so much driven by data and about progress with academic study. Not every school really has the chance to actually really develop their citizenship and their PSHE. But we've got the most wonderful, supportive PSHE coordinators and advisors in Liverpool who are really pushing this through. And next month I'll actually be speaking to the PSHE coordinators to try and get every school in Liverpool involved with being a dementia-friendly school.
That would be a tremendous achievement. Jackie, thank you very much indeed for talking to me. And just coming back to you, Gina, this kind of progress must make you feel very happy.
Oh yes, very proud and happy. I'm proud of the children, not necessarily of myself, but the children are just so wonderful. If you give children the opportunity to be good and kind, they'll take it, because we've seen it all the time.
Liverpool primary school teacher Jackie Kline and her source of inspiration, Gina Shaw, a lady truly living well with dementia.
Stir in me the songs that you are singing. Fill my gates with things as yet unseen. Give me faith to move in works of power, making me more like Jesus. And I will sing. And I will sing for all my days of heaven's love come down. Each breath I take will speak His praise until He calls me home. Then one day, I'll see Him as He sees me, face to face, the lover and the loved. No more words, the longing will be over. There with my precious Jesus. Sing that again. Then one day, I'll see Him as He sees me, face to face, the lover and the loved. No more words, the longing will be over. There with my precious Jesus.
Now let's finish with a look at this week's notice board. There's still time to enjoy the open gardens in the north of the island, with 9 glorious private gardens around Sulby, Ballaugh and Andreas, open again today from noon until 6 p.m. Programmes cost just £5 and admit one person to all the gardens, and you can find the programmes in Andreas stores, the Spa Shop in Ballaugh and in the Sulby Glen store, and all proceeds will support the community work of the churches in Sulby, Andreas and Ballaugh. The Friends of Onken Heritage are holding their annual service at Abbeylands this afternoon at 3, led by the Reverend Rebecca Ingruel and assisted by lay reader Carol Bairstow of St Peter's Parish Church in Onken. Everyone is most welcome to attend. This isn't just for the Friends of Onken Heritage. It's a chance to celebrate a precious piece of Manx history. Built around 1813, Abbeylands is now the oldest Methodist chapel still open here on the island. Also this afternoon, Cheryl Cousins is leading a Taizé singing workshop in the woods. Meeting this afternoon at 2:30 at Dalby Schoolrooms for a 45-minute walk to a singing workshop in the silence of the forest, then returning to the schoolrooms for refreshments, followed by Taizé worship at 6:30 in Dalby Church. Places are limited for the walk and workshop, so please contact Cheryl Cousins on 843 471 to check if there is still availability. But of course, there's no need to book for the Taizé worship this evening at 6:30. Just come to Dalby Church and enjoy. The weekly Sunday night at the Prom concerts continue as usual tonight at 8 o'clock, with a concert by Meadowside Choral Society in the Promenade Church here in Douglas. Admission is free and there'll be refreshments afterwards. St Thomas's Church in Finch Road here in Douglas continue their series of summer concerts with an hour of popular music every Wednesday evening from 7:45 with refreshments afterwards. This Wednesday, Angela Stewart's Manx Voices Choir will entertain, and whilst admission is free, donations would be most welcome. The Thursday night summer concert series in St Catherine's Church in Port Erin continues this week with music from the Manx Saxophone Ensemble. Admission is free, the starting time is 7:45, and there'll be refreshments in the hall afterwards. And now for events next Saturday, the 24th. There'll be a strawberry fair in the idyllic garden at Glen Villas near Selby Cladder next Saturday from 2 until 4 p.m. Delicious food including strawberries and cream, sandwiches, cakes and homemade lemonade, plus stalls and lots of fun and games for all ages. Cookie the Clown will be there to entertain the children, and there's a summer bonnet competition too, and admission is just £1 with proceeds to Selby Methodist Church. The Friends of Robert Owen House invite you to a hot pot supper and entertainment by Shenanigans Band. It's in Ballaugh Parish Hall next Saturday evening at 7:30. Tickets are just £12 and you can reserve yours by phoning June on 897 424. And proceeds will be divided between Robert Owen House and St Mary de Ballaugh Church. Well, it's been over 3 years in preparation and involved over 100 people, but it's finished now, and Puppets for Jesus will be launched next Saturday morning. Handmade characters will bring to life 12 major stories from the Bible, and you can see them next Saturday the 24th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. in the new Salvation Army headquarters in Ballacottia Crescent in Braddon. It's the former Red Cross headquarters just near Cycle 360. I'm really looking forward to seeing this, and I'll be talking to the driving force behind the project, Jean Farragher, on next week's programme. And finally, a week of special events starts next Sunday to celebrate St Maccled, honoured as patron saint of the Isle of Man, and to celebrate the beauty and history of Maccled Parish. There are walks, talks, special services, concerts and even a murder mystery dinner. There's a programme for the week that's circulating around the island, and all the details are on Facebook. Just search for Kirk Maccled. Or you could have a word with the organiser, Kirk Maccled Church Warden Claire Folds, and her number is 816 900 816 900. And that's all that we have time for today. News for the notice board and requests for your favourite hymns to be included in future programmes can all be sent to me via email, judithlay@manxradio.com, or by post if you prefer. Manx Radio, PO Box 1368, Douglas IM 991SW. I'll be back tonight at 9 with Sundown. Easy listening music to round off your weekend. But for now, this is Judith saying thank you for listening, and I wish you and those you love a blessed and peaceful week, and a very good morning.
Manx Radio.